Hello Raptors fans and welcome back to Raptors Report. Today we'll be discussing the Toronto Raptors game against the Houston Rockets. But before we do that, it's time to talk draft again because the trade deadline is over. Things are settling back in. The Raptors are losing games again. So we might be getting a couple of these draft episodes in a row. And just before we get into it, I have a Band-Aid on my nose. I know it always annoys me when something like that happens and it's unexplained, so let's just get that out of the way. Anyway, we're going to be talking draft today, and we are going to be going with pretty much what I would say the consensus number 5 guy, because I've talked about the top 4 of this draft. Before the trade deadline started heating up, I did a little draft series on the top 4 guys, and to be honest, it hasn't really changed much. These top four guys have kind of locked in there, especially with the emergent play of VJ Edgecombe, who I was kind of hyping up. I was saying, like, this guy looks like the real deal, and he's kind of rewarded that optimism with me by playing very well recently. Today, we're going to be talking about a guy who is kind of the consensus top 5. Another guy who has been right there near the top of the draft for pretty much the entire cycle, and that is Kasparas Jakucionis. And Kasparas Jakucionis is a 6'6" point guard out of Lithuania. And Lithuania is well known for creating NBA big men, and just big men in general in the EuroLeague, all of that sort of stuff. Their national team has a ton of bigs, and they really haven't been producing guards. You might know some of the players that have played out of Lithuania, obviously Jonas Valanciunas, Arvydas Sabonis, the great 90s big man, his son Domantas Sabonis, who has been an all-star multiple times. Maybe you would remember LeBron James's Cavs teammate, Big Z Zydrunas Ilgauskas. So they've put out a lot of bigs over the years, but they haven't really put out many NBA caliber guards since Sarunas Jasikavičius. And even he was kind of not really NBA caliber just because of his defense, but there is a new kid on the block from Lithuania, and he's a pretty exciting prospect, and I want to talk about him today. Kasparas Jakucionis. He is a guy that came out of Lithuania and rose up through their youth ranks and was noticed by FC Barcelona, and Barca is one of the best EuroLeague teams, and they have an amazing youth program. They've produced NBA players like Marc and Pau Gasol, Anderson Varejão, Ricky Rubio, a bunch of really good quality Spanish guards, but they're known to collect guys from all over Europe and develop them and bring them through their youth program. And so that's a good start. If they notice you and they take a liking in you, then that's probably a good sign about who you are as a player. Although he was there in their junior program for a while, he decided to enroll in college and he joined the Fighting Illini, and this is his freshman season. I mean, it sounds like he's had a pretty long career, but he's only 19 years old, so he is a freshman, and it's not like he's this grizzled EuroLeague vet like Jorge Garbajosa, where he played over there for 10 years before coming over to the NBA. He's still a young player who is still learning the ropes, and he joined the Fighting Illini, I think, to get the attention of NBA scouts. And he entered college as a 4-star recruit and has really kind of exploded onto the scene with his very intriguing package as a 6'6" point guard who really runs Illinois' offense. He is their primary creator. He does the heavy lifting in the half court, and he has been a very good scorer and distributor for them this season in college. And he has a lot of really interesting things going for him, so we'll kind of get into that. So the Big Ten is a good conference. It's one of the best conferences in college basketball, and he got off to a good start. A lot of it because of his hot 3-point shooting, so he's very good at creating off-the-dribble threes. And unfortunately, he has cooled down recently, so he was shooting around 40%, I think over 40% for a little bit during this season. But recently, his shot has kind of declined a little bit, but he does have a lot of other interesting elements of his game. Jakucionis is really good as a pick-and-roll creator. He has really good chemistry with his freshman teammate, Tomislav Ivicic, who is a Croatian freshman, and he's a stretch big. He's kind of an interesting player too. He's a little older, but he is a stretch big, so they can run pick and pops. That's kind of the bread and butter of the Fighting Illini offense. He also has some pretty good chemistry with the other freshman forward, Morez Johnson. He's kind of like a bowling ball going to the rim. He's a fun player to watch, but he is very good at using screens. And he understands how to create advantages using the screen, and he shows a ton of expertise utilizing pull-ups, utilizing angles, to create space for himself, using screen rejection. He's very good at that, using misdirection, not using the screen and then getting to the basket. They run him off of multiple screens, so if he uses a screen, no advantage created, they will rescreen for him and try it again. They use dribble handoffs. He is a very polished pick and roll player. He knows how to use screens and create with the ball in his hands, which is, a good skill, a skill that is very translatable to the NBA. So in terms of what he can do and his physical attributes, unlike the other guys that I've talked about so far, so Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, those guys are all pretty outstanding athletes one way or another. So either really good burst, very good vertical athletes, guys who have, amazing physical tools. Jakucionis is not that kind of player, although he does have some things going for him physically. He's 6'6". His burst off the dribble is decent. It's not crazy, but if you watch him when he gets an open lane or if he creates an advantage, he can take it to the basket and it looks like it's NBA caliber. It's not like he's a slouch or anything. It's just the guys that I've covered so far are like freak athletes. So he is not like that. Just want to point that out. He scores most of the buckets that he gets in college due to his high level of polish and his skills. And while that may seem like it could put a cap on what he could do at the NBA level, when perhaps some of the other prospects catch up to him skill-wise, and then maybe he's not there physically, that could be an issue, that could be a problem. But as Luka Doncic showed, sometimes it really is just all about the skills. Sometimes you are just more skilled than other players, and you have this bag of tricks that can just let you score, that just let you get good looks at the basket. And he has a little bit of that going for him. He really does have a lot of wiggle to his game. He's really good at using his tempo. You see this a lot in the NBA now, where players can speed up, slow down, and he uses that very well to create advantages for himself going to the basket. That's one of the main things that guards, especially guards who don't have that elite athleticism, can use to create advantages for themselves, is changing tempo, controlling the pace, and then using misdirection in order to get into the paint and score. He's good at that. And what I like about him is that in the modern NBA, if you are the lead creator, if you're the lead ball handler, you want to have a good mix of scoring and playmaking. And I feel like he has that kind of mentality as a player, where option one is to score, option two is to create a play for his teammates with a drive and kick. He's good at utilizing screens to create that advantage, and then he'll look to score on the inside. And if the defense shifts, he's willing and able to give the ball up. Another thing that he likes to do, and was much more effective earlier in the season, was that if players do go under the screen, or if he gets a little bit of daylight, he will shoot the ball. He'll come off of the screen shooting. And of course, I don't need to go into a huge amount of detail. That is an important element of being a guard in the NBA these days, especially a lead guard. You have to have that kind of pull-up shot. That is a big part of NBA offenses these days, and especially earlier in the season when he was making more of those shots, that seems to be a strength of his. So a lot of interesting stuff going on for him as a potential lead ball handler in the NBA. Now let's get into some of the problems here. Probably the biggest problem on offense are his turnovers. So he has a lot of turnovers, and it's not too surprising. He is a freshman that is being asked to create a lot. So his usage as a player is 24%, which isn't too high, but he also has an assist percentage of 30%. So do the math, add those two together, he's responsible for about 54% of Illinois' baskets while he's on the floor. He has the ball in his hands a lot. But there are also some other factors that lead to the high turnover rate. So first of all, he has a high dribble. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to turn the ball over a ton. If you recall, back in the day, the Toronto Raptors had a point guard by the name of Jose Calderon. He had a very high dribble, and he was actually, led the league in assist to turnover ratio for, almost the entire time he was in the league. He rarely turned it over. But he wasn't as adventurous, and he was kind of a throwback guard. He was not really going out there and getting to the basket a ton. Jakucionis is a little bit more swashbuckling, a little bit more dynamic. He is trying to create off of the dribble, and when you put yourself into those positions, a lot of the time that high dribble, you can get picked off by other players. They can snatch the ball away from you. Other things that I've seen just watching the tape is that he can struggle when they blitz the pick and roll. He has good height, so he's 6'6", so this isn't something that I could foresee him having a big problem with once he figures it out, because one of the antidotes to that is being able to throw the ball over the top and get it to players, to get it to your pick and roll partner when they're unguarded, at the free throw line. That's generally how you beat a blitz, but that has been an issue. And I think a lot of it is because Illinois is just very dependent and really needs Jakucionis to create for them. So the other team will key into that and try and create a turnover that way. And he can beat it, and he has beaten it, but that is one of the things that I've seen him turn the ball over with that. Another thing is just kind of brain farts. I noticed a lot. Just he'll pick up his dribble for questionable reasons, and then they can really crowd him and poke the ball away. I've seen him just kind of bobble the ball and turn it over, where it just seems like it's an unforced turnover, and that can happen. So it's not something that I'm too afraid of, but it's worth pointing out. He's had multiple +5 turnover games this season, so that's kind of an issue that you shouldn't ignore, but there are reasons for it, and a lot of it is just he has the ball a lot, and he's a freshman. So now let's talk about his defense. So his defensive win shares are actually pretty good. The level of competition in college is not very high, especially when it comes to creation and guards. In the NBA, there are super athletes and guys who can cook at the guard position. In fact, that is one of the most crowded positions in basketball. They have a ton of guys to pick from. You have to really show that you have scoring ability at the guard spot. Whereas in college, it's a lot about a system and running plays and creating scoring opportunities through your system. And in that framework, Jakucionis has been good. He has decent screen navigation. He has pretty good lateral foot speed. He is much bigger than most guards at his position. So it's a lot of the time they can find it hard to create a shot over top of his length. But at the NBA level, I could see him struggling to guard some of these bigger players, especially in screen actions. A lot of the time he goes under the screen. A lot of the time Illinois is hiding him a little bit against maybe guards that don't have the best burst off of the dribble. And another thing that I've noticed is that when he's on the floor, he is not the most willing help defender. So one of the things at the NBA level is you want your defense to be disruptive. You want players to come and help and then recover. You want to be digging in on players to try and create deflections, get strips, be aggressive. The Raptors like to do that. That is one of their strategies, is kind of crank up the ball pressure. And I've noticed that with Jakucionis is that once he is off ball, so if he's guarding a player who is off ball, he kind of sticks to his man. He doesn't really play the passing lanes. He's not trying to come over and double and create turnovers that way. He's kind of staying at home on the guy he's defending. I'm sure this had something to do with what Illinois' defensive strategy is, but it's worth pointing out, and I could see defense being a little bit of an issue for him at the NBA level. So now let's talk about the NBA. Let's say that the Toronto Raptors drafted Jakucionis. Let's say they were 5th and they drafted him just based on talent. The Toronto Raptors have some guards. They have some guys that like to use the pick and roll. Emmanuel Quickley, he likes to use screens. RJ Barrett likes to use screens. Even Scotty Barnes likes to use screens. And Brandon Ingram also likes to use screens. So kind of crowded there. Some of their other guys, Grady Dick is not much of an on-ball guy. I think Jacoby Walter has some potential there, but he's also kind of an off-ball player as well. So perhaps off of the bench, he could be, they have Jamal Shed there, but let's, keep things in perspective. This would be a number 5 overall pick versus a guy you drafted 45. Maybe you have to think about things there, but perhaps he could start with the Raptors off of the bench. So there is a little bit of skill overlap, but he does look like a good offensive player, and he does provide spacing. He can play off of the ball and shoot it. He plays in the corner sometimes when they don't have the ball in his hands, but it seems like it might be a little bit of a waste for him, so they might have to make some room for him with trades or whatever. The pitch for him would be that he is a 6'6" lead guard who can shoot, pass, score inside, handle the ball. He's good at drawing fouls. I don't like to make the comparisons of like white guys to white guys. It seems kind of lazy, but there are some certain guys that I'm seeing in the NBA who I think are good comps. For example, Tyler Hero and Austin Reeves. So those two guys are screen-using primary creators who can shoot and pass, draw fouls, do the lead guard thing. They lift your offensive floor because they give you a guy who can create. And that kind of seems to me what Kasparas Jakucionis could deliver at the next level. Tyler Here's an all-star this year. Austin Reeves has really come into his own. You can kind of see where he would fit into the NBA as a lead ball handler. And I kind of like him. I think he has a lot of talent. He may not be the best fit on the Toronto Raptors. So I've mentioned not drafting for fit, and I think that still applies here. But as you move down the draft board and you get out of tier 1, tier 2, maybe going down into tier 3, maybe then you can start thinking about fit. And I'm not quite ready to say draft somebody else above Kasparas Jakucionis, because I think that this is kind of, there are stratas in this draft. Cooper Flagg obviously being at the top. I think Dylan Harper, number 2, maybe Ace Bailey in there as well, and then VJ Edgecombe and Kasparas Jakucionis in that third tier, but I do like him as a player. I think he has a lot of potential. I think that he can help, and it looks like he will have the opportunity and ability to run an NBA offense. And yeah, that's kind of the pitch for him, and I'd be okay with the Toronto Raptors taking him in the draft. So in any case, that's kind of my quick draft summary of Kasparas Jakucionis, what he brings to the table. But there was a game yesterday. It was a matinee game because there was some other sporting event that happened yesterday. I can't remember what it was, but why don't we start it off with Immanuel Quickley. I thought Immanuel Quickley had a really good game. He has been down recently. He has a lot of people have been saying, we got to move on. This guy stinks. Me, the virtuous, patient YouTuber, had a bit more faith in Immanuel Quickley, and he rewarded me yesterday by having an efficient 20 points on 15 shots, 6 of 15 from the field, 3 of 9 from three-point range. He was 5 of 6 from the free throw line. He had 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, with 4 turnovers, but I thought it was a good game for him, especially going to the line. Last night was a great example of what he brings to the team. Houston is an excellent defensive team. They have really good guards and wings, and they're very good man defenders. What they were able to do was just kind of stymie almost everybody. But Immanuel Quickley, because he has a high level of skill and can create for himself, that is where his skill set shines, is against these really high-level defensive teams who are going to take away the baskets that you might get through just running your plays. Sometimes you need that elite creation, especially off the dribble three-point shooting. He was good at that. He was 3 of 9, so it wasn't amazing, but he was the best scoring option for the Toronto Raptors last night. And he was able to kind of do it at all 3 levels. He hit some nice floaters. He got inside the paint, finished there. He was able to hit his off the dribble 3. He drew free throws, and he was creating for other players too. I think this was just a very strong performance from him. It seems like they're just slowly raising his minutes. He played 30 minutes last night, which is, a good sign. Next up, this might be a little controversial because there was, oh my God, on social media, it's feast or famine. Either a player is amazing or they suck. That seems to be how a lot of people process information. And next up, I'm going to go with Scottie Barnes, and I get it. Scottie Barnes did not have an efficient evening last night. He had 15 points on 19 shots. That is not good. Not defending that. His shot selection was poor. He was 0 for 8. He needs to find some other way to score other than shooting threes off the dribble because it is not working. I was 3 of 4 from the free throw line with 9 rebounds, very good, 7 assists, good, 2 steals, 0 turnovers, 1 block, okay? Scottie Barnes was excellent defensively. He was unbelievable. Protecting the basket, switching, guarding guys on the perimeter, grabbing defensive rebounds, making it hard for the Rockets to score. He was on everybody. Before Şengün went out, that was what was happening, is that they would give him decent primary defense, and then when he committed, Scottie Barnes came over and bothered the shot. He only had 1 block last night. The amount of shots that he changed was unbelievable. He stopped a 3-on-1 fast break by himself. Just superlatives for this guy on defense, okay? So stat line watchers, people who are going after him, rightfully, for his offense, if you are going to criticize him for sucking on offense, you have to give him props for his defense. He was legitimately amazing last night defensively. Please keep that in mind. Overall, I would say a good game from him. A lot of people would say poor just because of his percentages. He did have 7 assists with 0 turnovers. That's pretty good, okay? So let's bump that grade up, and then once you add the defense on top of that, he was good, maybe even very good. Rant over. Let's move on to the next guy. Jonathan Mobo had a great evening. I thought he was super active defensively. He had 4 blocks. He was all over the place. And Scotty Barnes was kind of the center in this lineup, but they were doing a bit of a no-middle defense, which is the term for when you don't have a center, a guy standing in the paint, you don't run drop coverages, you switch everything, and you try and keep the other team on the perimeter. And Mobo executed very well. Did a really good job. And then once players got passed into the paint, they would rotate over and provide help. He and Scotty Barnes, he had 10 points on 3 of 10 shooting. So again, he was also 0 of 6 from 3, which kind of canceled out his really good shooting performance the other night, where he was 2 of 2 from 3. Everybody was really struggling to score this game, including Mobo. He was 4 of 5 from the free throw line, and he did draw some fouls just by getting inside. His finishing is but when he's able to draw the foul, he can get to the line and score that way, and he did. So I think this was a good game, a really good game from him, especially, you know, he played 31 minutes. He's starting to get thrown into the fire. We're starting to see what this guy is capable of. I'm going to mention Grady Dick here. He played 14 minutes, scored 0 points, 0 of 4 from the field. Okay, forget that. He was hurt in this game. He was knocked over going up for a layup, should have been free throws to be honest, and he got hit in the head. Hopefully he makes a full recovery. You know, he has had his ups and downs this season, but you know, I'm really pulling for him, and I hope that he can make it back, especially this season when there's a lot of development reps to go around. Hopefully he's able to make it back. Ochai Agbaji will round things out. I don't think he had a bad night. I think he was able to stay attached to players. He had 11 points on 5 of 8 shooting, 0 of 3 from 3, so his shooting struggles are continuing. This can happen during a season. You can have a really hot start. You can go into a slump. There's a lot of variance there. He had 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 turnover, and I thought he was okay. I think his defense was one of the reasons that the Houston Rockets weren't able to score a lot. They only scored 94 points this game. When you have a team that is really struggling to score, so Scotty Barnes couldn't get it going from 3, Jonathan Mobo couldn't get it going from 3, you would hope that the guy who is maybe one of your best shooters on the team could pick up the slack and hit some shots, and he was 0 of 3 from 3, so that was not able to happen, although he pitched in other areas, so it wasn't like a terrible game. And this was really about defense, and he's a good defender. Off of the bench, Jamal Shed. This guy has been cooking recently. He had an inefficient game from the field last game, but I was singing his praises just based on what he's doing out there and his passing. This game was a lot more efficient. He had 14 points on 9 shots. He was 2 of 3 from 3, hitting those kick-out threes, really using screens very well, creating for his teammates, getting into the paint and scoring. His craftiness, he struggled to score at the NBA level near the rim, but last night against a Houston Rockets team that doesn't have a ton of size, when he got inside, he was able to finish. Did a really good job of converting his drives into points. You know, I just enjoy watching him play. He plays the right way. I really like watching him play. 0 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 turnover, but it was really just all about kind of, you know, taking what the defense was giving to him, which a lot of this was just scoring. And, you know, hitting threes when he was left open, getting inside and finishing when he was able to. I thought it was a great game. Thought he played good defense. He was part of the package. The Raptors have a lot of really disruptive defenders and did a good job with the Houston Rockets last night. Next up, let's go to the other rookie. This was really just an amazing game for all 3 of the rookies. I mean, no Chomche, but the other 3 rookies. Jacoby had 10 points on 10 shots. So efficiency, you know, not great. He was 2 of 5 from 3, which is good, 40%. Had 3 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 turnover. And I think just played a solid game. Everything looked really good. His defense was strong. He was staying attached. The defense looked like it was on a string last night, and they were able to execute the no-middle defense, and a lot of that was just due to the fact that the guards are able to stick with their man and challenge shots. Jacoby Walter is another one of those guys. I think he's starting to come on, and he's starting, especially the three-point shooting. It's really important that that element of his game translates. I think that's kind of where he's going to be as a player, is a two-way player who can hit shots, and of course every team in the NBA could use that type of player, but I think there's a little bit extra there too, a little bit of creation potential with him, so excited to watch him develop. I thought he had a good game. Orlando Robinson also played. He is just every game just kind of doing the same thing, which is positive and negative, struggling to finish, and also playing good defense, rebounding, helping to run the offense with his screens and using the ball, kind of directing traffic, making good passes, knowing how to play the game. But then the finishing is just horrible. In fact, the only points that he scored last night were off of a 3-point shot, which looked okay. I mean, his shooting form's fine for a big, but the finishing, it just does not seem to be there. And it's, it's really tough. If you're a big, you got to be able to do that. So mixed game there. And a couple other players played too, but let's just talk about the game in general. I thought it was an entertaining game. I thought it was pretty good. The Toronto Raptors looked strong defensively behind Scotty Barnes and a bunch of very solid performances on the wing. Jonathan Mobo and Orlando Robinson also played good defense. Thought it was a strong defensive night where unfortunately they were just not able to pierce the Rockets defense, and especially when Emmanuel quickly had to sit in the second half due to his minutes restriction, the wheels just came off at the end. And although the Rockets were struggling to shoot, they made enough threes in the fourth quarter that they were able to pull away, and the Raptors really just could not generate anything. So entertaining game, ethical tank loss. I'm okay with that. Next up, the Toronto Raptors play the Philadelphia 76ers tomorrow in Philly. I really don't know what to expect with Philadelphia. Tyrese Maxey is having an unbelievable second half of his season. Since the new year, he's been on fire. The record is horrible, but, Joel Embiid could play. Tyrese Maxey has turned it on recently. They've got some other guys. Paul George is having a nightmare season, but who knows, which Paul George can show up. He's alternately, really good and then just absolutely horrible. So I don't really know whether the Raptors are going to be able to keep it competitive. They might even be able to win this game, depending on which Philly team shows up. It should be entertaining to watch. The Sixers are in a rough spot this season. The Raptors have already beaten them, but yeah, they are looking kind of stinky. Even when Maxey is cooking, sometimes that's just not enough. And their super rookie Jared McCain is out for the season as well. So, I'm interested to watch that game. And that is the episode. What do you think about Kasparas Jakucionis? Are you a fan of his game? Do you think that the fit on the Raptors is enough to turn down that kind of potential? Let me know here in the comments and also on Twitter and Blue Sky, where you can reach me at Raps Report. I love talking to Toronto Raptors fans. I love answering your questions, hearing your comments. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, because that helps the channel grow, reach more Raptors fans. And as always, thanks for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.